Jake Murphy sat in the cockpit of his broken cargo ship and wondered how his life had become such a disaster. The warning lights on his control panel blinked red like angry eyes. Steam hissed from the engine compartment. His last 3 credits. Saturday on the dashboard next to a pile of unpaid bills. 3 years ago, Jake had been a simple cargo hauler with dreams of exploring the galaxy. Now he was the most unlucky human in known space. Every job he took went wrong. Pirates stole his cargo. Space traffic controllers arrested him for crimes he never committed. His ship broke down in every system he visited. The cargo ship drifted near Nexus Prime, a gambling moon that orbited a dead star. Jake had hoped to find work there, but his engine had failed the moment he entered the system. Now he was stuck with no money for repairs and barely enough food for one more day. Jake climbed out of his pilot seat and walked to the back of his ship. Boxes of medical supplies filled the cargo hold. He was supposed to deliver them to a hospital on Kepler Station. But pirates had damaged his navigation system during the last attack. The supplies would spoil soon if he could not find a way to complete the delivery. A message appeared on his communication screen. Jake pressed the button to accept the transmission. The face of Admiral Kate Brooks appeared on the monitor. She worked for the Human Defense Force and had helped Jake many times before. Admiral Brooks looked tired. Her uniform was wrinkled and her gray hair was messy. She had been working long hours to coordinate human shipping routes through dangerous space. Jake, this is Kate Brooks speaking. I received your distress signal. Are you safe? Jake nodded at the screen. I am alive, but my ship is dead in space. The engine core is cracked, and I have no money for repairs. Kate Brooks frowned. She had known Jake since he started his cargo business. He was honest and hard-working, but seemed to attract trouble, like a magnet attracted metal. Jake, I am sending you the location of a repair station on Nexus Prime. The owner is a friend of mine. Tell her I sent you, and she might give you credit. For the work, Jake felt a small spark of hope. Thank you, Admiral. I will contact the repair station right away. The transmission ended, and Jake programmed his emergency thrusters to push the ship toward Nexus Prime. The gambling moon grew larger. In his view screen, bright lights covered its surface, like jewels on black cloth. Massive casinos and entertainment complexes dominated the landscape. Jake had never been to a gambling world before. He did not understand games of chance and had no interest in risking. Money he did not have, but if Admiral Brooks said the repair station could help him, then he would try. His ship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Nexus Prime. The emergency thrusters coughed and sparked. Warning alarms filled the cockpit with harsh sounds. Jake gripped the control stick and tried to guide his ship toward the landing pad coordinates that Kate Brooks had given him. The ship hit the landing pad with a loud crash. Smoke poured from the engine compartment. Jake sat in his pilot seat for a moment and listened to the sounds of his ship dying around him. Metal creaked and groaned. Electrical systems sparked and went dark. Jake gathered his identification papers and the few credits he had left. He walked down the cargo ramp and stepped onto the surface of Nexus Prime. The air smelled like ozone and cooking food. Music and laughter echoed from the nearby casino district. The repair station was a small building next to the landing pad. A sign above the door read, Luna Mitchell's Starship Repair. Jake walked inside and found a young woman working on a pile of engine parts. She had short brown hair and grease stains on her coveralls. The woman looked up when Jake entered. Can I help you? She asked. Jake held out his hand. I am Jake Murphy. Admiral Kate Brooks told me to find you. My ship needs major repairs, but I do not have much money. Luna Mitchell wiped her hands on a dirty cloth and shook hands with Jake. Kate Brooks is a good friend. Let me look at your ship and see what needs to be fixed. They walked outside to examine Jake's cargo vessel. Luna opened the engine compartment and whistled softly. The damage was worse than Jake had thought. Coolant leaked from cracked pipes. The main power core was completely burned out. "This is going to be expensive," Luna said. "You need a new power core, and half the engine components are damaged beyond repair." Jake felt his heart sink. "How expensive?" he asked. Luna calculated the costs in her head. "About 15,000 credits for parts and labor." Jake stared at his broken ship. He had exactly 3 credits to his name. 15,000 might as well have been 15 million. "I understand if you cannot do the work," Jake said. "I will find another way." Luna studied Jake's face. She could see that he was honest and desperate. Kate Brooks had told her about Jake's incredible string of bad luck over the past 3 years. "Wait here," Luna said. "Let me make a communication call." She walked back into her repair shop and contacted Admiral Brooks. The two women talked for several minutes about Jake's situation. Kate Brooks explained how Jake always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, but somehow managed to help people despite his terrible luck. Luna returned to where Jake was standing next to his ship. "I talked to Kate Brooks," she said. "She told me about your reputation for finding trouble. But she also said you always try to do the right thing." Jake nodded. "I try to help when I can, but things always go wrong for me." Luna made a decision. "I will repair your ship, but you will owe me the money. You can pay me back when you complete some cargo runs." Jake felt relief wash over him like cool water. "Thank you," he said. "I promise I will pay you back as soon as possible." The repair work would take 3 days, Luna explained. Jake could stay in the small apartment above her shop during that time. She gave him directions to the local market where he could buy food with his remaining credits. Jake walked through the streets of Nexus Prime toward the market district. The gambling moon was unlike any place he had ever seen. Holographic advertisements filled the air above his head. Alien beings from dozens of species walked the sidewalks wearing expensive clothes and jewelry. He passed the entrance to the Crystal Palace Casino, the largest gambling establishment on Nexus Prime. A crowd had gathered around a massive display screen that showed information about something called the Empress Gambit. Jake could not read all the alien text, but he saw images of a beautiful woman with blue skin and pointed ears. The crowd was excited about something. Jake heard fragments of conversation in various languages. Someone mentioned prizes worth millions of credits. Another person talked about contestants coming from across the galaxy. Jake continued walking toward the market. He had no interest in gambling and no money to waste on games of chance. His only goal was to repair his ship and complete the delivery of medical supplies too. Kepler stationed out at the market. Jake bought enough food for 3 days with his last credits. The vendor was a friendly alien with 4 arms who gave Jake extra fruit without charging for it. Even small acts of kindness felt important when everything else in life went wrong. On his way back to the repair shop, Jake noticed a long line of people waiting outside a building near the Crystal Palace Casino. A sign above the entrance had text in multiple languages. Jake could read the human text, which said registration for Empress Gambit competition. An alien security guard stood next to another sign that Jake could not read. The guard was checking identification papers and collecting entry fees from the people in line. Jake watched wealthy merchants and warriors pay thousands of credits just to enter the competition. Jake shook his head and continued walking. He could not imagine having enough money to gamble away on contests and games. His broken ship and empty bank account were proof that he had no luck with anything involving chance. When Jake returned to the repair shop, Luna was working late into the night. She had already removed the damaged power core from his ship and was preparing to install replacement parts. Jake offered to help, but Luna said the work required specialized tools and training. Instead, Jake prepared a simple meal and shared it with Luna in her workshop. She told him about her life on Nexus Prime and how she had learned to repair starships from her father. Jake told her about his cargo business and the series of disasters that had brought him to the gambling moon. As they ate, Luna mentioned the Empress Gambit competition that was taking place at the Crystal Palace Casino. The entire galaxy was talking about it, she said. An alien empress had wagered herself as the prize in an ancient ritual contest. Jake asked what that meant. Luna explained that Empress Zarathal ruled a vast interstellar empire. She had grown bored with her life and decided to hold a competition based on old traditions. The winner would become her husband and share power over her empire. Thousands of contestants had traveled to Nexus Prime, hoping to win. Jake thought that sounded like the most ridiculous thing he had ever heard. Why would anyone gamble away their entire life and empire? He asked. Luna shrugged. Rich and powerful people do strange things when they get bored, she said. The Empress probably thinks it will be an adventure. Jake finished his meal and went upstairs to the small apartment above the repair shop. He lay on the narrow bed and listened to the sounds of celebration coming from the casino district. Music and laughter echoed through the night air. Fireworks exploded in the sky above the Crystal Palace. Jake closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow Luna would continue repairing his ship. In 3 days he would be able to leave Nexus Prime and complete his cargo delivery. He had no interest in gambling competitions or alien empresses. All he wanted was to fix his ship and get back to work. But Jake Murphy had learned that the universe rarely cared about what he wanted. His worst luck often led to his greatest adventures. And on Nexus Prime, the biggest adventure of his life was about to begin. Jake woke up the next morning to the sound of Luna working on his ship. She had started early and was already installing new engine components. Jake dressed quickly and went downstairs to help however he could. Luna looked up from her work when Jake appeared. The power core installation is going well, she said. But I need some specialized coolant from the supply depot across town. Would you mind getting it for me? Jake nodded and took the credit chip that Luna offered him. The coolant would cost exactly what she had loaded onto the chip. Jake promised to return quickly and left the repair shop. The streets of Nexus Prime were busy with tourists and gamblers. Jake walked past the Crystal Palace Casino and noticed that the crowd around the Empress Gambit display had grown even larger. More contestants were arriving from across the galaxy. Jake reached the supply depot and found the coolant that Luna needed. The clerk was processing his payment when alarms started ringing throughout the building. Emergency lights flashed red, and automated voices announced a system malfunction. The payment system had crashed and was showing error messages in dozens of languages. The clerk looked frustrated and told Jake that he would have to wait until the system was repaired. Other customers in the depot were complaining loudly about the delay. Jake sat down to wait and watched repair technicians work on the computer systems. After 2 hours they managed to restore basic functions, but the payment processing was still broken. The clerk suggested that Jake return later in the day, when everything would be fixed. Jake left the supply depot without the coolant and walked back toward the repair shop. He took a different route through the casino district to avoid the crowds around the Crystal Palace. But Jake Murphy's bad luck was about to strike again. As he walked past a smaller casino, Jake noticed a commotion near the entrance. A group of security guards were chasing someone through the crowd. Jake tried to move out of the way, but the person they were chasing ran directly into him. Jake fell backwards and landed hard on the pavement. The person who had run into him was a small alien with green skin and large eyes. The alien scrambled to his feet and continued running while the security guards helped Jake stand up. One of the guards asked if Jake was hurt. Jake said he was fine, but noticed that his identification papers had fallen out of his pocket during the collision. He gathered them up, along with Luna's credit chip and some other items that had scattered on the ground. Among the scattered items was something that did not belong to Jake. It was a small plastic card with alien writing on it. Jake assumed that an alien had dropped it during their collision. He put the card in his pocket and continued walking back to the repair shop. When Jake arrived, Luna was waiting for the coolant. He explained about the computer malfunction at the supply depot and promised to try again later. Luna said she could work on other parts of the engine while they waited. Jake offered to help clean up the workshop while Luna worked, As he organized tools and parts, he found the plastic card that the alien had dropped. He showed it to Luna and asked if she could read the alien text. Luna examined the card carefully. "This is a registration token for the Empress Gambit competition," she said with surprise. "Someone paid 50,000 credits just to get this entry card." Jake stared at the small piece of plastic. 50,000 credits was more money than he had ever seen in one place. The alien who dropped it was probably desperate to get it back. "We should return this to the casino," Jake said. "The owner is probably looking for it." Luna agreed, and they walked to the Crystal Palace Casino together. The main entrance was crowded with reporters and spectators who had come to watch the competition. Guards checked identification and entry tokens before allowing anyone inside. Jake and Luna approached one of the guards and explained about finding the registration token. The guard examined the card and confirmed that it was genuine. He led them to a registration desk inside the casino, where officials were processing contestants. The registration official was a tall alien woman with silver hair and 4 arms. She took the found token and checked it against her computer records. The token belonged to someone named Vex Thornblade, who had purchased it 3 days ago. Unfortunately, the official explained Vex Thornblade had been arrested for cheating at cards in another casino. He was currently in jail and would not be able to participate in the competition. According to the rules, the token could not be refunded or transferred to another person, unless the official continued. Someone else wanted to use the token immediately. The registration period ended in 1 hour, and any unused tokens would become void. Jake started to leave, but the official called him back. She had noticed his identification papers when he was showing them to the guard. "You are human," she observed. "Humans are eligible to compete in the Empress Gambit." Jake shook his head quickly. "I have no money and no experience with gambling," he said. "I only came here to return the lost token." The official smiled. "The entry fee has already been paid with this token. You would only need to provide identification and sign the competition agreement." Luna looked at Jake with surprise. "This could be the solution to your money problems," she said quietly. "The prize for winning includes enough credits to buy a new ship." Jake felt panic rising in his chest. "I cannot compete against experienced gamblers and warriors," he said. "I would lose immediately." But the official was already preparing the registration paperwork. "The competition consists of 5 rounds," she explained. "Strategy games, physical challenges, diplomacy tests, leadership trials, and finally a game of pure chance called Cosmic Dice. Many contestants are eliminated in the early rounds," the official continued. "Even if you do not win the final prize, there are smaller prizes for reaching each stage. Making it past the first round would earn you 5,000 credits." Jake thought about his broken ship and the debt he owed to Luna. 5,000 credits would help pay for the repairs, but competing in the Empress Gambit seemed like the worst idea he had ever heard. Luna encouraged him to consider the opportunity. "What do you have to lose?" she asked. "Your ship is already broken, and you have no money. This might be your only chance to change your situation." The official was waiting patiently for Jake's decision. Other contestants were arriving, and the registration area was getting crowded. Jake could see aliens and humans from across the galaxy preparing for the competition. Finally, Jake made his choice. He signed the registration paperwork and officially became a contestant in the Empress Gambit. The official gave him a competitor, identification badge, and a schedule of events. The first round would begin the next day, Jake learned. It was a strategy game called Dimensional Chess that tested intelligence and planning skills. Jake had never played any version of chess before. Luna tried to reassure him as they left the casino. "Maybe you will get lucky," she said. "Strange things happen in competitions like this." Jake doubted that his luck would suddenly change for the better, but he was committed now and would have to make the best of the situation. They returned to the repair shop where Luna continued working on Jake's ship. The coolant depot had fixed their computer problems, and Jake was able to purchase the supplies that Luna needed. By evening, the engine repairs were progressing well. That night, Jake tried to learn about dimensional chess by reading instruction manuals he found on the Galactic Information Network. The game was incredibly complex, with pieces that could move through multiple dimensions of space and time. Jake's head hurt from trying to understand the rules. He closed the instruction manual and decided to get some sleep. Tomorrow, he would compete against some of the smartest beings in the galaxy in a game he did not understand. Meanwhile, in the Crystal Palace, Casino Empress Zerathal was reviewing the final list of contestants. The Empress was beautiful, with blue-silver skin and elegant pointed ears that marked her as one of the ancient races. She wore robes of deep purple that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Her advisor, Counselor Amy Riversong, stood beside the Empress, reviewing contestant profiles. Most of the competitors were wealthy nobles or experienced warriors who had trained for years hoping to win such a competition. Amy Riversong noticed one name that seemed out of place on the list. Jake Murphy was listed as a human cargo hauler with no significant achievements or wealth. His registration had been processed at the last minute using a found token. This human seems unprepared for the competition, Amy observed. Perhaps his registration should be cancelled. Empress Zerathal studied Jake's basic information and found herself curious about him. A cargo hauler with no money or training had somehow gained entry to the most exclusive competition in the galaxy. There was something interesting about that level of determination or desperation. Let him compete, the Empress decided. Sometimes the most unexpected contestants provide the greatest surprises. Amy Riversong made a note in her records but privately thought the human would be eliminated in the first round. The dimensional chess tournament would quickly separate serious competitors from hopeless amateurs. In another part of the casino, Captain Luna Mitchell was meeting with Admiral Kate Brooks. Luna had arrived on Nexus Prime as part of the security detail for the Empress Gambit. Kate Brooks had come to observe the competition on behalf of the human government. The two women were old friends who had served together in the space fleet. They sat in a quiet bar discussing the political implications of the Empress's unusual contest. This competition could change the balance of power in the galaxy, Kate observed. Whoever wins will gain influence over the largest alien empire in known space. Luna Mitchell agreed but was more interested in the contestants themselves. She had reviewed the profiles of all participants and was impressed by their qualifications. All except one. There is a human cargo hauler named Jake Murphy who somehow got registered today, Luna said. He has no experience with strategy games or political negotiations. I cannot understand why he entered. Kate Brooks recognized the name immediately. Jake Murphy is known throughout human space, she said with a smile. He has the worst luck of any person I have ever met. But somehow, his disasters always lead to positive outcomes for other people. Luna Mitchell looked confused. How can bad luck lead to good results? She asked. Kate Brooks ordered another drink and settled back to tell Luna about Jake Murphy's reputation. Over the past 3 years, Jake had been involved in dozens of incidents that seemed like complete failures, but ultimately helped solve larger problems. His cargo had been stolen by pirates, but Jake's distress call had led a patrol fleet to discover the pirates' main base. He had been arrested for smuggling weapons he knew nothing about, but the investigation revealed corruption in the customs service. Every disaster in Jake's life seemed to expose problems that needed to be fixed, Kate explained. The man was like a walking catalyst for positive change, even though nothing ever went right for him personally. Luna Mitchell found this hard to believe. One person cannot have that much influence on random events, she said. Kate Brooks shrugged. Maybe it is just coincidence, she said. But I have learned never to bet against Jake Murphy when the odds seem impossible. His failures have a way of becoming successes for everyone around him. As the two women talked, Jake was trying to sleep in the apartment above the repair shop. Tomorrow would begin the strangest adventure of his already very strange life. He had No idea that his entry into the Empress Gambit would set events in motion that would change the entire galaxy. Jake Murphy was about to discover that sometimes the universe's worst luck could become the greatest gift of all. Jake woke up on the morning of the first competition round feeling sick to his stomach. He had spent most of the night trying to understand dimensional chess, but the rules still made no sense to him. Luna had wished him luck before he left the repair shop, but Jake knew he would need a miracle to survive even one round. The competition venue was a massive arena inside the Crystal Palace Casino. Hundreds of spectators filled the viewing areas to watch the contests. Jake found his assigned table and sat across from his first opponent. His opponent was a tall alien, with 6 arms and skin that changed colors when he moved. The alien introduced himself as Master Corvain, a professional strategist who had won dozens of chess tournaments across the galaxy. He looked at Jake with amusement. "You are the human cargo hauler," Corvain said with a smile that showed sharp teeth. "This should be a very quick match." Jake nodded nervously and tried to remember the basic rules he had read about. The chessboard appeared as a holographic display between them. Game pieces floated in 3-dimensional space and could move through time as well as normal directions. Corvin made his opening move with confident precision. His piece disappeared from one location and reappeared in another dimension of the board. Jake stared at the display and had no idea how to respond. Jake randomly selected one of his pieces and pressed the button to move it. The piece vanished from the board completely. Jake assumed he had made an illegal move and lost the game immediately, but Corvain was staring at the board with confusion. The alien's translator device was making strange buzzing sounds and displaying error messages in multiple languages. Corvain pressed buttons on the device and spoke in his native language, but nothing worked properly. A tournament official approached their table to investigate the problem. She examined Corvin's translator and determined that it had malfunctioned during Jake's move. Without the translator, Corvin could not understand the game instructions or communicate with the officials. The official explained in basic galactic standard that Corvin would have to forfeit the match if his translator could not be repaired. Technical malfunctions were considered part of the competition hazards. Corvain tried desperately to fix his device, but the malfunction was too severe. After 30 minutes, the official declared Jake the winner by forfeit. Jake could not believe what had happened, but accepted his advancement to the second round. As Jake left the arena, he overheard other contestants talking about his match. They were calling it the strangest victory in tournament history. No one could understand how Jake's illegal move had caused Corvain's translator to fail. The second round was scheduled for the next day and would test physical prowess and combat skills. Jake had no training in fighting and knew he would be eliminated quickly. But Admiral Kate Brooks found him before he could worry too much about it. Kate Brooks had been watching Jake's first match from the spectator area. She congratulated him on his unexpected victory and offered to help him prepare for the physical challenges. "You have natural reflexes and good instincts," Kate said. "With some basic training you might survive longer than you think." They went to a practice facility where Kate taught Jake some simple defensive moves and showed him how to use the competition equipment. The physical round would take place in a combat arena with various obstacles and challenges. Jake practiced for several hours, but still felt completely unprepared. Kate reminded him that sometimes survival was more important than winning. If he could avoid being eliminated quickly, he might advance through lucky circumstances again. The next morning Jake reported to the combat arena for the second round. His opponent was a massive warrior from a planet known for producing the galaxy's best fighters. The warrior wore armor covered in battle scars and carried weapons that looked like they could cut through starship hulls. The combat challenge was designed to test strategy and skill rather than pure violence. Contestants had to navigate through an obstacle course while competing for control of key positions. The first person to reach the central platform and hold it for 60 seconds would win. Jake and his opponent started at opposite ends of the arena. The warrior charged forward with impressive speed and began climbing over barriers and swinging across gaps. Jake tried to follow, but moved much more slowly. Halfway through the course, Jake's clumsiness caused him to trip over a cable that was hidden beneath some padding. When he fell, the cable was pulled loose from its connection point. Jake did not realize that the cable controlled the arena's gravity generators. The gravity in the combat arena suddenly shifted to random directions. Instead of pulling downward, it began pulling sideways and upward in different sections. The massive warrior who had been dominating the course found himself unable to control his movements. Jake's lighter weight and natural clumsiness actually helped him adapt to the chaotic gravity changes. He bounced and tumbled through the course in ways that looked accidental, but somehow moved him toward the central platform. The warrior tried to use his strength to fight against the gravity shifts, but only managed to become more disoriented. He crashed into barriers and got tangled in the obstacle course equipment. Jake reached the central platform first and managed to hold on to it, while the gravity continued to shift randomly. The 60-second timer counted down while his opponent struggled to even reach the platform area. Arena officials worked frantically to restore normal gravity, but their efforts failed until after Jake had won the match. Tournament judges ruled that equipment malfunctions were part of the competition risks and Jake's victory was valid. The spectators were amazed by what they had witnessed. Many of them had never seen anyone navigate chaotic gravity with such apparent skill. Jake tried to explain that he had just been lucky, but no one believed him. Empress Zerathel watched Jake's second victory from her private viewing box, high above the arena. Her advisor Amy Riversong was taking notes about all the contestants, but seemed especially interested in Jake's performance. "This human is either incredibly skilled or incredibly lucky," Amy observed. "His techniques are unlike anything I have studied." Empress Zerathal found herself fascinated by Jake's unconventional approach to the challenges. Most contestants relied on training and preparation. Jake seemed to succeed through pure instinct and adaptation. "Perhaps luck is a skill that we do not fully understand," the Empress suggested. "This human might teach us something new about succeeding against impossible odds." The third round would test diplomatic and negotiation abilities. Contestants had to resolve simulated conflicts between different groups and find peaceful solutions to complex problems. Jake had no experience with politics or diplomacy. Captain Luna Mitchell approached Jake after his second victory to offer congratulations and advice. She had been observing the competition as part of the security detail and was impressed by his unexpected successes. "The diplomatic round requires honesty and clear communication," Luna explained. "You might do better than you think because you speak directly without hidden agendas." Jake was grateful for the encouragement, but still felt overwhelmed by the competition. He had already advanced further than anyone expected, including himself. But each round would be more difficult than the last. That evening, Jake studied information about galactic politics and trade disputes. The diplomatic scenarios would involve real conflicts that needed creative solutions. Jake would have to find ways to make different groups cooperate despite their disagreements. Lady Vera Stone was also preparing for the diplomatic round. She was an experienced human merchant who had built a trading empire through careful negotiations and strategic alliances. Vera had been watching Jake's progress with growing interest. Something unusual was happening with the cargo hauler's victories, Vera realized. His successes were too convenient to be pure luck, but she could not determine if Jake was incredibly skilled at hiding his abilities, or if he truly was succeeding through random chance. Vera decided to place a large bet against Jake surviving the diplomatic round. His direct, honest approach would be crushed by experienced politicians and negotiators, or so she thought. The third round began with contestants receiving detailed briefings about their assigned diplomatic scenarios. Jake was given a conflict between two merchant families who had been feuding for over a century. The families controlled important trade routes, and their fighting was disrupting commerce throughout the sector. Jake's task was to negotiate a peace agreement that both families would accept. Previous mediators had failed because each family demanded concessions that the other refused to consider. The conflict seemed impossible to resolve. Jake met with representatives from both families in separate rooms. He listened to their complaints and demands without taking notes or making promises. The family representatives expected him to propose complex political solutions like previous mediators. Instead, Jake asked simple questions about what each family actually wanted beyond defeating their enemies. He discovered that both families were primarily concerned about protecting their employees and maintaining profitable trade routes. When Jake brought both families together for negotiations, he ignored their traditional demands completely. Instead, he focused on their shared interests in successful commerce and worker safety. He suggested practical solutions that would benefit both families without requiring either to admit defeat. His approach was so direct and honest that it confused the family representatives. They had prepared for political maneuvering and compromise negotiations. Jake's straightforward focus on mutual benefits was completely unexpected. To everyone's surprise, both families agreed to Jake's peace proposal. His solution was so simple and practical that they wondered why previous mediators had not suggested it. The century-old feud ended with a handshake and plans for cooperative trade agreements. Tournament officials were amazed by Jake's success. The scenario had been designed to be nearly impossible to solve. Most contestants were expected to achieve partial solutions at best. Jake had somehow negotiated a complete peace agreement. Lady Vera Stone lost her bet and began to seriously reconsider her assessment of Jake's abilities. His diplomatic success could not be explained by luck alone, but his methods were so unconventional that they defied normal analysis. Empress Zarathal was watching Jake's diplomatic session through remote monitors. She had been hoping to see contestants demonstrate political skill and strategic thinking. Jake's approach was neither political nor strategic, but it was remarkably effective. He solves problems by ignoring the rules that create the problems the Empress observed. Most diplomats focus on managing conflicts. This human eliminates conflicts by addressing their root causes. Amy Riversong was beginning to understand why Jake kept succeeding despite his apparent lack of preparation. His honest, direct approach cut through the complexity that usually made problems difficult to solve. But the advisor was also concerned about what Jake's continued success might mean for the Empire. If he won the final competition, he would become the Empress's husband and gain significant political influence. This human represents chaos and unpredictability, Amy warned. Those qualities could destabilize everything we have built. Empress Zarathal considered her advisor's concerns, but found herself hoping that Jake would continue to advance. Her empire had become stable and prosperous, but also predictable and boring. Perhaps chaos was exactly what it needed. Only 3 contestants remained after the diplomatic round: Jake Murphy, the warrior Prince Korath from the vegan system, and Lady Helen Cross, a brilliant strategist who had won every challenge through careful planning and superior intelligence. The 4th round would test leadership abilities through military simulations. Contestants would command fleets of starships in battle scenarios, designed to evaluate tactical thinking and decision-making under pressure. Jake had never commanded anything larger than his single cargo ship. Against experienced military leaders, like Korath and Helen Cross, he seemed to have no chance at all. But Jake Murphy's luck was about to prove that the impossible was just another word for unexpected. The 4th round of the Empress Gambit took place in a massive simulation chamber that could recreate entire space battles. Jake stood before a command console that displayed more controls and information screens than he had ever seen on any starship. His opponents for the leadership round were formidable. Prince Korath commanded the royal fleet of his home system and had never lost a military engagement. Lady Helen Cross had graduated first in her class from the Galaxy Strategic Academy and wrote textbooks on fleet tactics. Jake stared at the simulation controls and tried to remember everything. Admiral Kate Brooks had taught him about basic ship operations. The task seemed impossible. He would be commanding 50 starships against enemy fleets controlled by expert military commanders. The simulation scenario was a three-way battle with each contestant controlling an equal fleet. The goal was to capture and hold a strategic space station while defending against attacks from the other two fleets. Victory required both offensive capability and defensive planning. Prince Korath began the simulation by organizing his ships into perfect battle formations. His fleet moved with precision and discipline as he positioned them to assault the space station. Every ship knew its role and executed commands flawlessly. Lady Helen Cross took a more analytical approach. She studied the battle space carefully and identified key tactical advantages. Her fleet spread out to control important positions and cut off enemy supply lines. Her strategy was methodical and mathematically precise. Jake looked at his fleet display and had no idea how to give proper military commands. The interface showed dozens of ship types with different capabilities and weapon systems. He pressed random buttons, hoping something useful would happen. His fleet scattered in all directions without any apparent plan. Some ships flew directly toward the enemy, while others retreated to defensive positions. Jake's commands were so chaotic that his own officers began requesting clarification through the communication system. Prince Korath and Lady Helen Cross watched Jake's fleet movements with confusion. His ships appeared to be following no recognizable strategy or formation. Both commanders assumed Jake was attempting some advanced tactic they did not understand. This caused them to hesitate and analyze Jake's movements instead of focusing on their own attacks. They had prepared to fight against conventional military strategies. Jake's random chaos made it impossible to predict what he would do next. While Korath and Helen studied Jake's fleet movements, Jake accidentally discovered something unexpected. His random commands had caused several of his ships to explore areas of the battle space that normal tactics would ignore. One of Jake's ships detected an unusual energy signature near the edge of the simulation zone. Jake clicked on the signature without understanding what it represented. The simulation displayed information about a hidden enemy base that was not supposed to be part of the scenario. Jake had discovered a programming error in the simulation software. The hidden base was left over from a previous training exercise and contained powerful weapons that could destroy entire fleets. No one had noticed the error, because military commanders normally focused on the main battle area. Jake's accidental discovery triggered an automatic response from the simulation system. The hidden base activated and began attacking all three fleets indiscriminately. Prince Korath and Lady Helen Cross suddenly found themselves fighting against enemies they had not expected. The simulation became chaotic as all three contestants tried to adapt to the new threat. Korath's perfect formations were disrupted by weapons fire from unexpected directions. Helen's careful strategies collapsed when her planned positions became dangerous. Jake's randomly scattered fleet was already spread across the battle space, in positions that provided some protection from the hidden base. His ships were not grouped together like the other fleets, so they took less damage from the automated attacks. More importantly, Jake's accidental commands had revealed the location of the hidden base to his fleet computers. While Korath and Helen struggled to find the source of the attacks, Jake's ships automatically began targeting the hidden installation. The battle became a race to destroy the hidden base before it could eliminate all three fleets. Jake's ships had a significant advantage because they had detected the threat first. His random exploration had given him crucial intelligence that his opponents lacked. Prince Korath realized what was happening and tried to redirect his remaining ships to attack the hidden base. But Jake's fleet was already in position and had begun their assault. Lady Helen Cross attempted to coordinate a joint attack, but the communication systems were overwhelmed by combat alerts. Jake watched his ships destroy the hidden base without fully understanding what had happened. The simulation declared him the winner based on achieving the primary objective of controlling the space station. His victory was valid, even though it had resulted from a software error. Tournament officials investigated the simulation results and confirmed that Jake had legitimately discovered and eliminated a hidden threat. The programming error was their responsibility and did not invalidate his victory. Military experts would study the incident for years. Prince Korath congratulated Jake on his unexpected success, but privately wondered if the human had somehow known about the hidden base in advance. Lady Helen Cross was frustrated by losing to what appeared to be pure luck, but admitted that Jake's unconventional tactics had been effective. Only 2 contestants remained for the final round of competition. Jake Murphy would face Lady Helen Cross in the ultimate challenge called Cosmic Dice. The winner would claim Empress Zarathal as their prize according to the ancient rules governing the contest. The Cosmic Dice ceremony took place in a sacred chamber deep beneath the Crystal Palace Casino. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness the final moment of the Empress Gambit. The chamber was filled with mystical energy that made the air shimmer like heat waves. Empress Zarathal descended into the chamber wearing ceremonial robes that seemed to be made from captured starlight. She moved with grace and dignity, befitting her status as ruler of a galactic empire. Her beauty was legendary, but her intelligence and strength were even more impressive. Jake felt overwhelmed by the significance of the moment. He had somehow advanced through 4 rounds of competition against impossible odds. Now he stood before an alien empress who commanded billions of subjects and controlled technology beyond human understanding. Lady Helen Cross appeared confident and prepared for the final challenge. She had calculated the probability factors for cosmic dice and believed her analytical approach would give her an advantage. Helen had never lost a game that involved mathematical strategy. The rules of cosmic dice were simple, but profound. Each contestant would roll 3 dice made from crystallized space-time. The dice responded to quantum probability fields and cosmic energy patterns. Highest total score would win the competition. But these were not ordinary dice that followed normal mathematical laws. They were ancient artifacts that could bend reality itself. The outcome depended on forces that science could not fully explain or predict. Amy Riversong explained the ceremony protocols to both contestants. They would take turns rolling the cosmic dice in front of all the assembled witnesses. The results would be final and could not be challenged or repeated. Lady Helen Cross volunteered to roll first. She approached the altar, where the cosmic dice rested on a platform of polished crystal. The dice glowed with internal light and seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Helen picked up the 3 dice and held them carefully. She had studied ancient texts about cosmic probability and believed that focused mental energy could influence the outcome. She concentrated intensely on achieving the highest possible result. The dice left her hands and tumbled through the air in slow motion. Time seemed to stretch as they spun end over end before landing on the crystal platform. The spectators held their breath as the dice came to rest. Helen's total score was impressive, 17 out of a possible 18 points. The crowd murmured appreciation for her excellent result. Mathematical probability suggested that beating 17 would be extremely difficult. Jake approached the altar, knowing that he needed an almost perfect roll to win. He had no knowledge of cosmic probability or quantum energy fields. His only option was to hope that his strange luck would somehow help him one more time. The cosmic dice felt warm in Jake's hands and seemed to vibrate with mysterious power. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about the magnitude of what he was attempting. Jake had learned that overthinking usually made his luck worse. He released the dice without ceremony or special technique. They flew through the air in normal time, and bounced across the crystal platform. But instead of coming to rest immediately, they continued rolling toward the edge of the altar. Jake watched in horror as the cosmic dice fell off the platform toward the chamber floor. If the dice were damaged or lost, the ceremony would be ruined, and he would be disqualified. His clumsiness had finally caused a disaster that could not be fixed. But the cosmic dice did not break when they hit the stone floor. Instead, they bounced and ricocheted around the chamber in impossible patterns. They struck walls and ceiling, before somehow landing back on the crystal platform. The final result showed a total that should not have been mathematically possible. Each die displayed a face with 7 dots instead of the normal maximum of 6. Jake's total score was 21 points, which exceeded what the dice were supposed to be able to produce. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, as witnesses tried to understand what they had seen. Tournament officials examined the cosmic dice and confirmed that they were genuine and undamaged. The impossible result was somehow valid. Empress Zarathul stepped forward to address the confusion. The cosmic dice had revealed their true nature, she announced. They were not bound by normal mathematical limits when responding to someone with the proper cosmic alignment. Jake Murphy had demonstrated a connection to chaotic probability forces that the dice recognized and amplified. His victory was legitimate according to the ancient laws that governed the competition. Lady Helen Cross accepted defeat gracefully, although she could not understand how Jake's result was possible. She congratulated him on achieving something that defied scientific explanation. According to tradition, Empress Zarathul now belonged to Jake as the winner of the Empress Gambit. But the ancient ritual also allowed the Empress to make a cut if she chose to do so. Zarathul looked at Jake with eyes that sparkled like distant stars. She had been hoping for a champion who could bring change to her static empire. Jake Murphy represented chaos and unpredictability incarnate. The Empress made her decision and stepped closer to Jake. Instead of accepting the traditional marriage arrangement, she proposed something unprecedented. She would abdicate her throne to become Jake's equal partner in exploring the unknown regions of space. Together, they would seek out impossible situations and find solutions that no one else could imagine. Their combined abilities would create opportunities for adventure and discovery throughout the galaxy. Jake stared at the beautiful alien Empress and realized that his life was about to change in ways he could never have predicted. His worst luck had somehow become the greatest opportunity in galactic history. But before he could respond to her proposal, Jake had one question that needed to be answered. What would happen to her empire if she abandoned her responsibilities as Empress? Zarathul smiled and gestured toward Amy Ribasson. Her advisor was fully capable of ruling the empire with wisdom and efficiency. The transition of power had already been planned as part of the Empress's secret strategy. Amy Riversong stepped forward and bowed formally to Jake and Zarathul. She had been preparing for this possibility and was ready to assume leadership responsibilities. Jake Murphy looked around the chamber at all the faces watching him expectantly. Representatives from across the galaxy waited to hear his decision. The future of multiple civilizations might depend on what he said next. For the first time in 3 years, Jake felt that his incredible bad luck might actually be the best thing that had ever happened to him. Jake stood in the sacred chamber, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy, and felt the weight of an impossible decision. Empress Zarathul had offered him a partnership that could reshape the future of multiple civilizations. But Jake had learned to be cautious about opportunities that seemed to have been good to be true. He looked at the beautiful alien Empress with her silver blue skin and elegant pointed ears. Her offer was generous beyond anything he could have imagined. But Jake had one more surprise for everyone in the chamber. Instead of accepting the Empress's proposal, immediately Jake asked for permission to speak privately with some of the people who had helped him reach this moment. He wanted to understand the full implications of their partnership before making a commitment that would affect billions of lives. Empress Zarathel was intrigued by Jake's request for consultation. Most winners of the Empress Gambit would have accepted her offer without hesitation. Jake's careful consideration showed wisdom that impressed her even more. Jake first spoke with Admiral Kate Brooks, who had been watching the ceremony from the spectator area. Kate congratulated him on his incredible victory, but warned him to think carefully about the responsibilities he would be accepting. "You have always helped people through your disasters," Kate reminded him. "But this decision would make you responsible for helping entire civilizations. Are you prepared for that level of obligation?" Jake had been wondering the same thing. His bad luck had always affected relatively small groups of people. Managing galactic-scale problems would be completely different from his previous experiences. Next, Jake talked with Luna Mitchell, who had repaired his ship and given him the opportunity to compete. Luna was amazed by how far he had advanced but shared Kate's concerns about the enormous responsibilities involved. "Maybe you should start with smaller partnerships," Luna suggested. "You could work with the Empress on specific projects before committing to a permanent alliance." Captain Luna Mitchell from the Dominion Fleet also offered her perspective. She had served under Empress Zarathal for many years and understood both her strengths and her limitations. "The Empress is brilliant and powerful," Luna said, "but she has been isolated by her position for too long. She needs someone who can help her reconnect with ordinary people throughout the galaxy." Jake realized that the partnership would be as beneficial for Zarathal as it would be for him. She had been trapped by the expectations of ruling an empire, while he had been trapped by his pattern of constant disasters. Lady Vera Stone approached Jake during his consultation period. The experienced merchant had lost money betting against him, but wanted to offer her congratulations and some practical advice. "Partnerships between humans and alien empires are complicated," Vera explained. "You will need legal agreements and political protections. I can help you navigate those requirements if you decide to proceed." Jake appreciated the offer, but was more interested in Vera's assessment of the Empress's sincerity. Did she believe Zarathal was genuinely seeking partnership, or was this some kind of political manipulation? Vera had been studying the Empress throughout the competition and believed her motivations were honest. Zarathal seemed genuinely bored with traditional imperial politics and was seeking meaningful change. Finally, Jake spoke with Amy Riversong, who would become the new Empress if Zarathal abdicated her throne. Amy was both excited and nervous about the prospect of ruling such a vast empire. "I have been preparing for this responsibility for years," Amy said, "but I want to be certain that you understand what the Empress is offering to sacrifice for this partnership." Amy explained that Zarathal would be giving up absolute power over hundreds of worlds and billions of subjects. The decision was irreversible, according to the ancient laws that governed imperial succession. Jake began to understand the true magnitude of what was being offered. This was not just a marriage proposal or political alliance. Zarathal was willing to abandon everything she had known for the chance to explore unknown possibilities. After consulting with everyone who had helped him, Jake returned to the center of the chamber where Empress Zarathal was waiting patiently. The assembled representatives watched silently as he prepared to announce his decision. Jake looked at the Empress and realized that he had been thinking about the situation incorrectly. Instead of accepting or rejecting her proposal, he wanted to suggest a completely different approach. "Your Majesty?" Jake began using the formal address that protocol required. "I am honored by your offer of partnership, but I believe we should start with a trial period before making permanent commitments." The chamber buzzed with surprised voices as Jake continued explaining his counter-proposal. He suggested that they work together on a series of specific missions while maintaining their independent positions. "If our partnership proves successful, after 1 year we can consider more permanent arrangements," Jake said. "But rushing into major Changes might create problems we have not anticipated. Empress Zarathal listened to Jake's suggestion with growing admiration. His caution and wisdom impressed her more than immediate acceptance would have. Jake was proving that his success in the competition had not been pure luck. "Your proposal has merit," the Empress replied. "But how would you structure this trial partnership to ensure meaningful cooperation?" Jake had been thinking about that question during his consultations. He proposed that they establish a joint exploration fleet to investigate problems in remote regions of the galaxy. "We could focus on situations that seem impossible to solve," Jake explained. "My experience with disasters might complement your political and military resources." The Empress found Jake's idea fascinating. A joint fleet would allow them to work together while maintaining their independence. If the partnership succeeded, they could expand their cooperation. If it failed, they could separate without major political disruptions. Amy Riversong supported the modified proposal because it would allow the Empire to remain stable during the experimental period. Admiral Kate Brooks liked the idea, because it would give humanity a voice in galactic affairs without overwhelming commitments. Captain Luna Mitchell offered to serve as liaison officer between the human and Dominion components of the joint fleet. Lady Vera Stone volunteered her merchant network to provide supplies and intelligence. Even Prince Korath and Lady Helen Cross endorsed the partnership concept. They had been impressed by Jake's unconventional problem-solving abilities during the competition, and believed he could make valuable contributions to galactic civilization. Empress Zarathal formally accepted Jake's counter-proposal, and announced the formation of the first Human Dominion Exploration Alliance. The partnership would begin immediately with a joint fleet of volunteers from both civilizations. Jake would command the human contingent while maintaining his independence as a civilian contractor. Zarathal would provide Dominion resources while retaining her position as Empress. Their joint missions would focus on impossible problems that conventional solutions could not address. The ceremony concluded with representatives from dozens of species offering support for the new alliance. Jake's victory in the Empress Gambit had created opportunities for cooperation that no one had expected. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Unity watching a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels approach their next impossible mission. His bad luck had continued, but now it was helping solve problems across the galaxy. Their first mission had been a rescue operation on a world where the atmosphere was being poisoned by industrial accidents. Jake's ship had suffered multiple malfunctions during the approach, but each breakdown had revealed crucial information about the source of contamination. The second mission involved mediating a trade dispute between species that communicated through incompatible methods. Jake's communication equipment had failed completely, but his attempts to fix it had accidentally created a new translation protocol that both species could understand. Every disaster in Jake's continuing series of bad luck had led to breakthroughs that helped people in ways that conventional expertise could not achieve. Empress Zarathal had been right about the value of chaos and unpredictability. Luna had completed the repairs too. Jake's original cargo ship, which now served as his personal transport within the joint fleet. Admiral Kate Brooks coordinated with Human Space Command to provide ongoing support for the Alliance missions. Captain Luna Mitchell had become the official liaison between human and Dominion crews. Her diplomatic skills helped bridge cultural differences that could have caused serious problems. Lady Vera Stone had established trading posts along their exploration routes that benefited both human and alien communities. Amy Riversong provided political support from the Dominion capital while learning to rule with wisdom and fairness. Jake watched Empress Zarathal reviewing mission reports on the bridge display screens. Their partnership had exceeded all expectations and was creating positive changes throughout their exploration region. The Empress had found the meaningful challenges she had been seeking. Jake had discovered that his disasters could be channeled into helpful outcomes. Together they had proven that cooperation between different species could solve problems that neither could handle alone. Their current mission involved investigating distress signals from 17 different star systems, where conventional rescue operations had failed. The problems ranged from natural disasters to technological malfunctions to political conflicts. Jake smiled as he ordered the fleet to proceed toward the nearest emergency. His terrible luck would undoubtedly cause multiple equipment failures and navigation errors during the mission, but those same disasters would somehow reveal solutions that trained experts had missed. Empress Zarathal joined him at the bridge railing and looked out at the stars ahead. Their partnership had brought adventure and purpose to both of their lives. While helping countless people throughout the galaxy, the universe had taught Jake Murphy that being the unluckiest man in space was actually the perfect qualification for bringing hope to impossible situations. His worst failures had become his greatest strengths. Together with Empress Zarathal and their joint exploration fleet, Jake was ready to face whatever impossible disasters awaited them among the stars. They had learned that sometimes the best way to solve problems was to embrace the chaos that conventional wisdom tried to avoid. The Human Dominion Exploration Alliance had become a symbol of cooperation and innovation throughout the galaxy. Jake Murphy's incredible bad luck had somehow transformed into the foundation for a new era of interspecies partnership and discovery. As their fleet jumped to hyperspace toward their next impossible mission, Jake realized that winning the Empress Gambit had been just the beginning of his real adventure. The universe was full of problems that needed his special brand of helpful disasters, and Jake Murphy was exactly the right person to provide them.